and welcome to No Credentials Required. This podcast is brought to you by Belly Up Sports in association with Godzilla Media. Before we begin our today's interview, just want to remind you to go to our social media pages, which is on Twitter and Instagram at BellyUpNCR, Facebook.com/Belly Up Sports NCR, and YouTube. Just search for No Credentials Required. And speaking of the YouTube side, just want to ask you to kindly like, share, and subscribe to YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell. You know when new videos are coming up. And also find us on your favorite or preferred podcast medium, whether it be Apple Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, Google Play, any of those places. Find us and kindly give us a rating as well, just so we know that you're paying attention. You know we're out there. And even though this is an Albany-based show, still want to remind you about our hashtags, which is hashtag Muddy518 and hashtag Local Sports Matter. Usually we do Albany area sports, but today I have a very special guest, and you might know her from seasons 1 and 2 of Last Chance U. I want to bring in my special guest, Brittany Wagner. Brittany, how are we doing today?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How's things going down in Alabama?
Things are great. Yeah, life is back in Alabama.
Yep, it's back in New York too, although it's a little bit later than some other states, but we're pretty much open, which I'm very, very happy for.
I was just there, actually. I was just in New York City earlier this month.
Okay.
I was happy to see you driving.
Yeah. I'm about 3.5 hours north, up near Albany, the capital. So typically my podcast covers locals. It's repivot to local sports, but I try to bring in special guests every once in a while, and figured, all right, let's see if Brittany Wagner wants to come on the podcast. So, all right, so let's dig in and talk about your career, your time at EMCC. Also talk about your book a little bit more, and also a couple of curveball questions at the end. So, was education something you've always been passionate about, or was this something you fell into?
Both. I think that I did fall into it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, which I think is a positive for me now, because when I try to speak students everywhere, that's kind of my message, is you don't have to have it all figured out. There's a lot of pressure on young kids to know what they want to do and do everything perfectly and have it all figured out. And I didn't. I had no idea. And I kind of fell into the athletic academic counselor thing. But once I was in it, and even before, both my parents are educators. So, I mean, I was kind of born into the whole, education is important thing. But I also, was able to kind of see both sides of the story through my job and in working with athletes who felt like their only way out was through their sport. And then me trying to show them that, yes, that you can be good at that and that is important and let's work on that. But also you can be more than an athlete, and really kind of preaching the education thing to them. So, I think it was kind of both. I think I became more passionate about it as I worked with these athletes and started to see their stories and really what they needed in order to be successful at the next level.
Now, if someone mentions the town of Scuba, Mississippi in a conversation, what kind of feelings or memories does that specific town elicit?
I think, right when you said it, I just kind of started laughing, because if you're mentioning Mississippi in a conversation, and I don't know what your life consists of, but I mean, the feelings are mixed. I mean, I have feelings of joy and happiness and really some warm, feel-good feelings about Scuba, Mississippi. And I also have anxiety and stress and because look, I mean, it was 8 great years of my life, but it's also a bubble. I mean, when you're in those tiny little towns like that, it feels like you're in this bubble and you kind of lose sense of reality of the rest of the world because you're just in this weird place. So I look back now at my time in Scuba and I kind of, question some of my own maybe just my own healthiness, maybe just because I was in, it's just a weird place to be. And it's so yeah.
Okay. Now, I have a couple questions about your time at EMCC. You kind of touched on it, my first question, but how did you become an academic advisor at EMCC? And did you work exclusively with football players, or did you work with other athletes as well?
Yeah, that was a huge misconception from the show. I had 200 athletes, and I was one counselor. I had no help. I had no assistant. I had no, secretary. I had nothing. I was one person to 200 athletes. So football was obviously our largest sport and most successful. And then I had men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball, golf, and rodeo, which rodeo.
Wait, rodeo? Radio?
Yeah.
Rodeo?
Rodeo, which
I did not know it was college rodeo.
Yeah. College rodeo. And we were national champions college rodeo as well. So, which was a whole nother show in and of itself. So it was a very stressful job because I was working, our basketball team was successful. They competed for national championship several years in a row. And we sent athletes to the next level in all of our sports. So I wasn't just managing the eligibility and life of football players. What you saw me doing with football, I was also doing with basketball. I was also doing with baseball. So and the cameras would just turn off when other athletes would come in my office. The cameras would turn off, and they kind of got to know who they were filming and who they weren't filming. But that was a huge misconception that I only worked with football throughout my whole career. Yeah.
Did you experience the different personality types when it came to different sports?
Absolutely.
So rodeo people were different from the basketball players, or different from the football players, different from the baseball, golf, all those.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think it all has to do with our upbringing and our experiences. And I think that's one thing that I learned is that, that I learned and really started to believe in is that we're all a product of our experiences. And a lot of that has to do with privilege. I mean, you would see the sports that just tend to have more privileged athletes competing in them. And there would be a mentality and a mindset attached to that sport because of the privilege that they had grown up in versus a sport that maybe had athletes that didn't grow up in that same privilege. And so it was interesting because there were personality traits. There was also a work ethic sometimes attached to the sports, just based on, how hard they had to work to get there. And then how rough the sport is, and how mentally tough they have to be to play the sport. You would kind of see personality, attached to that. I think also the success of the sport. Our football team was 5-time national champions, and their success alone, I think the pressure that was attached to that success also played a role in they're having to deal with them and how you needed to deal with them, because there was more pressure attached to them sometimes, but just because of their success.
Watching the show, I've watched all 5 seasons. I actually went back and rewatched seasons 1 and 2 before our interview. And as you said, there's a lot of misconceptions about the show. I recently watched an interview with Jason Brown from Independence from seasons 3 and 4. And he says there's a lot of stuff that goes on that there's over 3,500 hours filmed, and only 16 of those or 32 of those make it to the actual show. During season 2, you left EMCC, and from what I saw on the show, it was a difficult decision. Was it a difficult decision to leave EMCC? And do you still talk to anybody at EMCC? Do you still keep in communication with some of those people?
It was a very difficult decision. Probably one of the most, if not the most difficult decision I've ever had to make. Wow. I knew that it wasn't just impacting me to leave. I knew that it was impacting a lot of people, including fans of the show, because the show originally wasn't going to migrate to different schools. It was an East Mississippi show. And, when I left, I think it threw a curveball to the producers and Netflix of what they were going to do next. And I knew that. I knew that it would impact a lot of people and all over the world. I knew that it would, and I knew that it would impact the athletes that I worked with, which was really the hardest part of the decision, was just knowing that I was kind of leaving them. It was extremely difficult. It was also, I think, a beautiful moment because, and I haven't watched it in a while, but it's one of my favorite scenes of the whole show, where a football player named Jay Johnson is talking to me, and he says, look, Miss Wagner, you tell us all the time to go for it and pursue our dreams, and now it's your turn. And the roles kind of reversed, where he kind of talked me into, like, look, you've got to do what's best for you, and it's your turn to go live your dreams. And so go for it and do what you keep always tell us to do. And, and it was really the athletes and their affirmation and their kind of positive reinforcement to me that really probably put me over the edge of actually doing it.
And do you still keep in touch with some of the people at EMCC, or is that kind
of? I do.
Okay.
No, I mean, the longer you're gone from a place, I think the more distance becomes in the relationships. I think that's just human nature. But I still keep in touch with some of the adults, some of the faculty, staff, and coaches. And then also many of the athletes, even before Last Chance U, just in the 8 years that I was there. I still text and touch base and talk to some of the athletes, but also social media helps. I'm friends with a lot of athletes and people from scuba on social media. And so I get to kind of see what's going on and stay in the loop that way. And I admit that's one of the things that was always the hardest for me, is when the athletes would leave. They're graduating and they're moving on. And that was always the hardest part, was kind of letting them go and knowing that the relationship would change once they left. It's tough. They feel like they're kids and they're there, and you don't really want to let them go.
Yeah. I got you. I have a nephew who he went to college this past fall, and he's 4 hours away in Rochester, but you kind of miss him when he's not there. Of course, he had to come back because of the COVID rate at St. John Fisher spiked, and he had to come back and do all his stuff remotely. But yeah, I don't have kids of my own, but I totally understand where you're coming from. It's tough to see. It's tough to see those kind of kids leave for bigger and better things. You hope the best for them, but at the same time, you're like, oh, I'm going to miss that guy, or I'm going to miss that girl,
Absolutely.
All right. So my next question is, what was you founded 10,000 Pencils, and unfortunately I forgot my own pencil, so I apologize for that. You always said to bring a pencil. Darn it, I forgot mine. But you started 10,000 Pencils. What was the starting point? What was the impetus to start 10KP?
I wanted to maximize the platform that Netflix had given me, and I knew that, okay, here's this show. Now I have this platform that's bigger than I ever imagined I would ever have. What can I do with it? And when I decided to leave and try to work with athletes or students everywhere. And so that's what 10,000 Pencils is it's a company where I can be content and work with faculty, staff, coaches, students on really how to meet the social and emotional needs of students. Because what I found over time is that students who are starving can't learn. Students who are in an abusive relationship at home, they have trauma and they come to school, and then we want them to fit in a box. We want them to sit in a seat all day and act how we want them to act. And when someone is starving, that's what's on their mind. And they don't understand why someone who supposedly cares about them is not addressing the fact that they're starving. And I think that's the breakdown in education, is that sometimes we're so focused on the data, we're so focused on the statistics and the numbers, that we forget that we're dealing with human beings. But when we don't know our students and we don't know the life situations they're in, we can't educate them. Because it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Until those top needs are met, you can't go down the ladder. And I think that's kind of where our education system breaks down. And so that's really my focus with 10,000 Pencils is really pushing that message of building relationships with your students first, and worrying about the test scores and the data and the statistics second. And so, that's what we've done over the last 4 years. And it's been fun and rewarding and incredible to travel all over the United States and meet people and see people, see the struggles, see the successes of people all over this country.
According to your website here, there's a television show in the works. It's being developed by Courtney Cox and Michael Strahan, based on your life. Now, who approached you about this idea? Was it Courtney Cox and Michael Strahan, or was it just some out of the blue? Somebody just said, "Hey, we want to do a show based on your life. How can we do this? How can we pull this off?"
No, yeah, it was Strahan and Cox actually. So Strahan has an entertainment company called Smack Entertainment, and they approached me, and I'd already picked Courtney to play me. Courtney had already agreed. So actually they reached out via email, and then we had a conference call where we were all on the line and just kind of talked about it, and it went from there. And so, yeah, it's super exciting. COVID put the brakes on it for a minute. So it's a little behind schedule, but hopefully this next year it'll be out. And look, Courtney, to have Courtney Cox and Michael Strahan on your team, I mean, I don't know anything better than that. So I'm super excited about it. It's going to be awesome and fun and emotional. So I'm excited.
Now, can she pull off the accent though? Can she pull off the Southern accent? That's my biggest question.
Well, Courtney is originally from Birmingham, Alabama, which is where I live now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She grew up in Alabama. And it's funny because when we talk, so she's come here to see me a couple of times. I've gone to her house in Malibu, and when she one of our early conversations, she said, "Gosh, I spent thousands of dollars on dialect school to get rid of my Southern accent, and now I'm going to have to get it back." But I think it's in her core somewhere down in there. So I feel like she'll have absolutely no problem getting it back.
The reason why I brought you on No Credentials Required is because I saw that you have a new book coming out on September 7th. It's titled Next Chance You. Was writing this book something you had planned for a while, or was this something that just came up during COVID, or what was the purpose for writing this book?
Yeah, I wanted to a while back. I kept having fans reach out and saying, you should write a book, or saying, look, if I had you when I was in college, I would have been more successful, or I wish I, had your advice in my life on a daily basis. And I was getting thousands of emails from not just athletes, but from adults all over the world saying, I wish I had you in my life. And so I thought, well, why can't you? Why don't I write down the tips that I use to work with these athletes? Why don't I put it together in a book form? And then you do have me, and I am available. And so it kind of came about that way. And it was a long and hard process. I had no idea how to write a book, not a writer. So, I mean, there were days where I wanted to throw my pencil and be like, forget this. But I'm so proud of it, and I'm proud of it because I wrote it, like it's mine, and I did it, and I started it, I finished it. It's authentic to me and to who I am, and so I'm really excited about it. And I hope that everyone, all the thousands of emails I got, I hope they buy the book and they're excited to kind of share that. I mean, it is tools and tips, but it's also personal stories of my own life, my own struggles. I also tell stories of athletes that I've worked with, some that were in the show, some that were not. And so, it's inspirational, motivational, and also a little bit of a kick in the butt too. So it's good.
All right. Now, my next question, I've got a couple more questions left, but here's my next question. Who would benefit the most from reading your book?
The most, I think everyone, honestly, and I wrote it for that way. I didn't want to pigeonhole into athletes only or into college students, or because I did get emails from so many people and, from women everywhere going, wow, you're a woman working in a man's world. How did you do that? Or how do you deal with being the only woman in the room all the time? And I got emails from older men saying, gosh, I could use your input and your advice in my life now, but I really could have used it when I was younger. So I wrote it for that, with that in mind, of kind of trying to reach everyone. I think though that the college student, you know, really grabbing that book as a college student, a graduation gift, or a college student, or someone just out of college and into the workforce, I think it would be extremely beneficial to them. But really, it's for everyone working on their next chance. I was never a big fan of the whole last chance notion. I realized that with the show, you know, yes, a lot of these athletes were on their last chance to play at the next level, but I don't believe that any of us are on the last chance in life. You know, I mean, we wake up, if you wake up, you have a chance. Like, you are working on your next chance if you woke up this morning. And so that's really the message of the book. So anybody that's going through a divorce, a new job, you know, graduating from college and going into the next phase of their life. I mean, anybody that's kind of has a dream and really wants to pursue it, that this book is for you, because it is talking about how to maximize your next chance. And we all have one. We all have an opportunity to be better today than we were yesterday.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a kind of a story about that. So behind me, up top of my, right there, is my bachelor's degree. A few years ago, I was actually a chaplain for a pro hockey team. I was chaplain for 9 years, and the team that I was ministering to decided to leave. Unfortunately, they went to a different town, so I was kind of stuck figuring out what am I going to do? What am I going to do for now that there's no ministry out here anymore? And lo and behold, I decided I do some research, and I found that a school had a partnership with the company I work with presently. This is not my day job, unfortunately. I would like to make this my day job, but I decided, all right, let's give it a shot. Let's go to school, get my bachelor's, and took 3 years of sweating and praying and sometimes crying and just putting your nose to the grindstone. And last May, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in communication from Regent University. A lot of it had to do with from your inspiration from the show. You telling football players or other athletes that this is not your last chance. This is not your last chance. Contrary to the title, this is not your last chance. As long as you're breathing, you're still useful for something, and you can still go out and make a difference in this world. So a lot of that inspiration, part of the inspiration was you talking to athletes and just speaking into their lives and saying, you can do this. I have hope in you. I have hope. You know, you have hope in anybody who walks through your door and says, I'm struggling with this. And you always kept them on that path. And that was a little bit of an inspiration of one reason why I went to college and got my degree. So thank you for that. Incredible. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah. And you know, that's true. We all have the ability to better our own lives. And I think sometimes things like that, bad things happen to us, and we sit in it, you know, and we think like, well, woe is me, and there's nothing I can do. And that's the lie that society, or, you know, we're telling ourselves, but it's a lie. You know, we always have an opportunity, and it takes work, and it's not easy, and it's not free, and the blood, sweat, and tears are real. But, you know, we all have the opportunity. We all are valuable enough to go for it. And I think that's, you know, that's the key right there, is having the confidence in yourself and the value in yourself to understand that you're worth it. And, you know, that's what I try to instill in the athletes. And that's what I try to portray in the book too, is that we matter, you know. So go out and grab the best life that you can, because it matters.
Excellent. No, definitely. It's definitely worthy advice for sure for anybody who's listening to this podcast or watching on YouTube too, because this will be on YouTube as well. Brittany, thank you again for your time. Where can people find you on social media? Where can they find the book when it comes out? Can we pre-order it? Give us, you have the platform, my lady. Go ahead and tell the people where they can find you.
You can pre-order the book now on any outlet you can buy a book. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, you can pre-order. Indie, I think it's Indie Bound, and Bookshop as well. And the book comes out September 7th. You will be able to buy it wherever you can buy books. And also there will be an audible version of it as well. And I am narrating it myself. So that will be fun to hear my Southern accent read the book, I guess. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, Brittany_MS Girl from Mississippi, Brittany_MS Girl. Or Facebook, my fan page is Brittany Wagner.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time, Brittany. Again, I know you have a really busy schedule, and I just very humbled that you would be coming on my little podcast here in upstate New York and talk about your career, your little bit of your life, and give us a background about what your book's about. So again, thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.